Hey everyone, this is Professor Dingman again, and what I'm going to be doing in this video is going over our readings and giving some little mini lectures on each of those readings that we covered for this unit. Note that my 16-week class, you do have one additional reading that my 8-week class does not, and that's Drive Chapter 5. So 8-week class, don't worry about Drive Chapter 5. It's not in your Canvas page. It's not applicable to you. 16-week class, yes, you have to read chapter 5 of Drive. It is a required text for your class. Okay, so in this article, The Significance of Grit by Deborah Perkins Gow, she interviews the psychologist, Angela Lee Duckworth, about this term grit, right? Which Angela Lee Duckworth has kind of coined in terms of how it applies to learning and the psychology behind learning particularly, but also just how grit functions in different aspects that are not academics as well, as she discusses in her article, right? So essentially what Angela Lee Duckworth is saying in her article and in her TED Talk, right, is that those who are successful, and that's relative, right? Success is defined by the person who's striving for it. We all have different things that we strive for, and we all have different measures of what is successful. So this notion of grit is that you do what it takes to reach that success, knowing that there are going to be barriers that try to prevent you from reaching your success or mastery, right? But that you find a way through, over, around, below those barriers, right? That you stick to it because you're passionate about whatever goal that is, whatever level of success, whatever thing it is you are trying to achieve. And because you're passionate, you don't give up when you hit those roadblocks. Like I said, you find a way to take down those barriers, take down those roadblocks, and still pursue your path. Right. And we do acknowledge there are going to be barriers and obstacles in your education, right? College is difficult. And unfortunately, the rest of the world and life and the universe doesn't shut down and just let you be a student and focus 100% on school, right? Some of you have work, family obligations, right? You might be taking a full load of courses in addition to this very heavy unit class, right? 5-unit class. And we're in the middle of a global pandemic still. So, right, you're kind of being pulled in a bunch of different directions. And some semesters you might be on track and just do everything right and get really good grades. And other semesters you might struggle, right? That might be the semester that you get really sick, or grandma gets really sick and you have to spend a lot of time in the hospital, or whatever it is. But the point that Angela Lee Duckworth is trying to make is that when you have those setbacks, they don't define who you are. You use that grittiness, that passion, that stick to it attitude, that perseverance, she says, right, to bounce back, to say, okay, I messed up this semester. Where did I mess up? How did I mess up? How can I fix this? What am I going to do differently next semester so that I don't repeat the same mistakes, and so that I am still moving towards my goal? Right. So that's what Angela Lee Duckworth is saying. She says, we focus too much on talent. We want to believe that successful people are successful because they're talented. And while talent is a real thing, right, and it can lead people to success, it's what you do with that talent, right? You have to cultivate that talent. You have to still put in effort. There are plenty of talented people, right? Naturally smart people, naturally gifted people who don't put in the work, and therefore they don't achieve the same kind of greatness. Okay, those people who achieve greatness, for example, I'll give a good example, Kobe Bryant, right? Put in the work over and over, and any setback, any struggle, he just kept finding a way to break down those barriers and strive towards his goal to be, the best basketball player that he possibly could. And he's not the only one, right? You have LeBron James, you have, going back, Michael Jordan, anybody who's ever been like kind of a mega sports star, right? Doesn't matter the sport. Part of what got them there was being gritty, right? Was practicing on those days when they didn't feel like practicing, when they were hurt, when they were tired, when they were sick, right? They didn't let those things act as barriers to them still pursuing their goals, their dreams, their success. Right. So that's what she's getting at, is that, yeah, talent's great. Talent's cool. It's there, it exists, but you have to cultivate that talent. And you do that through effort and through sticking to your goals, sticking to your dedicated path to success. Otherwise, you know, you're not going to reach it. You're going to derail and you'll stay there, right? And she's saying the gritty people are the ones who don't let themselves stay stuck. They find a way to get unstuck and make that progress, which is a great idea. However, there has been some pushback, as I mentioned in my original video that explains the reading activity and the notes that you're taking along with it. That there is an opposite side of that coin. Yes, on one hand, you know, grit's a good thing and we should all try to be gritty. Let me put my thing on. Do not disturb. Okay. And quit my email. Okay, so yeah, there's being gritty. That's on one side of the coin, right? Is, you know, not giving up, pushing through all those barriers and obstacles and, you know, doing what it takes, everything that you need to do to reach success, right? But the other side of that is, should you have to, right? Why do we make certain things so hard? Couldn't we remove some of these barriers, like in education, right? Certain requirements, certain attitudes, certain you know, things that practices that we do that make it more difficult than it needs to be, right? This notion of if you don't reach, also this notion of if you don't reach success, that means you weren't gritty. And that's not true, right? We can all probably think of examples of people who try their hardest and they're good people and they keep working and trying to achieve their goals and they just can't reach them. So we can't say it's a failing of them to be gritty, right? There are other circumstances, other things in life that also impact what we do, right? Cultural things, where you come from, language, your socioeconomic status, right? Your sexual orientation, your gender, all those things come into play when you're trying to reach for success, right? And certain people have more barriers than other people. So to just kind of measure everybody by this one standard of grit, if you're gritty, you're going to make it. If you're not gritty, you're not going to make it, is an oversimplification, right, of each person's particular circumstances. And that's something I would encourage you to look up too, is look up what's the opposite side. What are the people who are saying we shouldn't be pushing everybody to be gritty, particularly in education and making everything hinge on grit? What do they have to say, right? And they have to say kind of similar things to what I was just telling you all, that, you know, let's remove some barriers. Let's make certain things like education, an institution, a place where you don't have to push through so many barriers, right? And education should be not a barrier, but a ladder. It should be a way of propelling you towards success, towards more earning potential, towards whatever else it is that you're trying to achieve in your life. Education should not be the barrier, right? So I agree with it on that side too. But I do think grit does have its place, right? Because like I said, stuff's going to get thrown at you throughout your life. And, you know, how you respond to that really matters. But like we said, you know, why do we have to make so many things so hard? And if somebody is failing at something, or they fail at something, that doesn't mean that they're not gritty or that they're dumb or that they're a failure of all different types, right? Certain circumstances, outside influences, environment, all those types of things impact who we are and what we're able to achieve. So it is kind of unfair to paint, right, the whole learning process with this: if you're gritty, you'll reach success. If you're not gritty, you won't. And understand that it's a nuanced concept here, right? That both things can be true. Having grit can be a good thing, but focusing on grit too much could also be a bad thing, right? And I'll also leave that to you. What do you think? How do you think grit comes into play in education or in your life? Is it important? Should people be gritty? Should you be gritty? Why or why not, right? Okay, let's take a look at our next one. Our next one is the habits of mind. And this is a document that if you've read the article, you'll see was put together by this committee, the CWPA and some other committees of teachers and some other folks that got together and decided which habits of mind, which kind of traits or characteristics they believed were essential for success in college, particularly success in like college writing, but also across the entire curriculum and beyond college into real life situations. So the 8 habits of mind that they picked are curiosity, persistence, metacognition, engagement, flexibility, creativity, responsibility, and openness. Let's start with persistence, because it kind of comes right off of what we were just talking about with the significance of grit, right? That's one of those things that Angela Lee Duckworth was talking about. Resilience is persistence, right? Persevering. That is exactly what she's talking about. Those who stick to it when things get tough, who don't give up when they fail, who find a way to bounce back. Right, is what we're saying is essential for success in college writing. And I will tell you, yes, this class is going to be difficult, and we do multiple drafts of our essays. And I can guarantee you that at some point in this semester, there will be a point where you want to quit. You don't want to do an assignment, maybe even an essay. You're just like, I can't do this. I don't want to do this. And I'm going to challenge you to dig deep and persist, right? To keep pushing. Because you can do this, and there's help. And the way I have structured my grading system, right, you're not going to get punished. So that is, I can see value in persistence as being a habit of mind, right? Because we will face barriers, and college is tough. It's right. It's challenging. It requires us to really think in a lot of different ways that we haven't thought before for some of us. And it really pushes us, I would say, not just mentally, but even physically and right? Emotionally, you can get burnt out and get sick, and then what happens, right? Persistence is, I think, a key for success in college and beyond. Up next, we have curiosity, and I think that's another fantastic habit of mind. I feel like curiosity is the bedrock of education, right? It's why we have colleges, universities, schools, books, all those things, period, right? We were curious individuals, curious humans, curious to know how does our world work? How does nature, how does the sun, how does the moon, how do all these things work, right? We start from a place of inquiry, and we discover, we research, right? We share information. And that's what school is, right? And school is founded upon this notion of curious people discovering things about our world, and then preserving and sharing that knowledge and passing it on. And I will say that is something that's going to be really important in your college career, is being curious, right? And really taking agency over your own learning, and digging a little bit deeper. If there's a topic that you're covering in a certain class, if you're curious about that, man, go for it. Look up additional resources. Some of the things that we talk about in this class are pretty interesting, and might actually give you the motivation to be curious and go deeper into these subject matters. And I really encourage you, be curious. That's an important thing. Ask questions, right? Question everything. Curiosity is an important trait, and we want to make sure we're fostering that and not shutting that down. You should be constantly asking questions about, why things are the way they are. How can we change things? What matters, right? Moving on, we have openness. Again, a fantastic trait, right? It's necessary because you're learning new ideas, right? And college is essentially this time in your life when almost everything that you're getting are these new ideas. And you might not agree with those ideas, or you might be having to read or take a class with a subject that you're not interested in, right? Or right, again, that you disagree with. And the challenge here is to not shut down, to say, okay, I'm at college. The place here is designed for me to learn. The best way for me to learn is to be open-minded, be open to new experiences, new perspectives, right, from other people, new readings, new visual, right, videos, things like that, new ideas, and not shutting them down before you hear them. right? And I think that's important, and it extends beyond the classroom and college in general into life, right? You should be open to hear what other people have to say, like on a contentious topic, right? Be open to hearing all sides of an argument, and then analyze what each person, each argument says, and then you make the decision for yourself which side to agree with, which side to support. But we should be open to listening to things, and open to, like the document says, new ways of learning, thinking, being, trying, right? If the old stuff's not working, try something new. And that goes back to grit, and even is related into brainology, right? And the fixed and growth mindset. Up next, we have responsibility. This one kind of seems like it should be self-explanatory, but let's go through it anyways. Of course, responsibility is essential for success in college, right? Everybody has their own responsibility. I have responsibilities as your instructor, but you also have responsibilities as the student. And I will tell you, here in college, the responsibility really shifts, right? In K through 12, school's compulsory, you're a minor, right? Everybody decides everything. And it's the teachers that have most of that responsibility, and the parents, right? And the administration, principals, vice principals, all that kind of stuff, right? They are the ones who are responsible essentially for your learning. Once you switch over to college, that responsibility transfers from, right, all those people I just mentioned, teachers, parents, officials, other school employees, right, onto you. You're the person who's now in charge of your education. You're the person who's responsible for how much you learn or don't learn, right? College is optional. Doing all these things are optional. You can sign up for my class, and you can look at all the work as optional. Do it, pass the class. Don't do it, you won't pass the class, right? And you have to take responsibility, because it's more of an independent process than what we kind of think about when we think about how K through 12 works, right? You're the one who's responsible for signing up for the classes that you need. You're the one who's responsible for making sure that you're taking the right classes for whatever your goal is, to get the AA or to get the transfer AA, or just to get a certificate, whatever it is. You're the one who's responsible for making sure you're taking the right classes and getting the learning that it is you need, right? And that can be scary, because some of us don't know how to take responsibility. How do I take responsibility for learning? How do I teach myself when that responsibility has never been on my shoulders? Right? And that's where you kind of look back at these other habits. Like, it takes curiosity. Start going deeper into some of these topics that interest you, especially if it's related to your major or your career field, right? Take the responsibility to seek out resources if you're struggling, if you're failing, if you're having a hard time managing your time, right? As I mentioned in my Canvas tour video, we have a ton of resources dedicated to helping our students reach success. We get grant money, we use student fees, we use all types of different funding to provide support services for students, right? And we try to, as a college, to reach out to everybody and let them know about these supports and these services. But it's your responsibility as the student to then use those programs and services, right? So that you can help yourself be more successful. Again, right? It's not forced on you, it's offered to you, and you have to pick up that responsibility and move forward towards your goals. Up next, we have creativity. And I think this is kind of one of the underrated ones, right? Is creativity important? And I would say, yeah. You're going to need to be creative sometimes, right? Again, go back to that notion that I said of, maybe you have you have a class that you don't like. How are you going to study for that class? How are you going to keep yourself engaged, which is another habit of mine that we'll get to in just one more minute, right? And creativity also helps make the world go round. It's now a marketable trait, a marketable trait to have. If you look at like what we're doing in terms of like technology, right? Apps, platforms, social media, they're looking for the next big thing, right? The next big idea, the next big app, the next big social media outlet. And that comes from creativity, right? they're looking for creative people who think outside the box, who have, different solutions to challenging problems. And I think that's important too, right? We have in our world some very, very challenging, complex problems, and complex, challenging problems require complex solutions. And that requires also a degree of creativity to create these complex solutions to our very complex problems. And like I said, it's marketable, right? These companies are looking for people who can be creative. Creativity is really, one of those underrated things, particularly in the STEM field. And you'll see that they're also kind of transitioning that term STEM, right? Science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. They're starting to call it STEAM at some colleges. They're adding in the arts, right? And that notion of creativity, and how creativity is really one of those engines that pushes the progress forward. So creativity is important and marketable. Up next, we have flexibility. This is a good one. Yes, you have to be flexible, right? We basically demand that of you in college, because if you're taking more than one class, let's say you're taking 3, 4, 5 classes, each instructor has their own way of running their class. They have their own policies, their own grading, their own level of rigor, right? All those things. And we require you to just do it, right? And so you're trying to manage all these different policies and all these different subjects and all these different professors' preferences of how you do things, right? And then at the end of 16 weeks, boom, it's switched up and you get a whole new set of professors, a whole new set of classes, right? And we also can't guarantee that you're going to get a schedule that you really like. Think about that, right? You might be a morning person, but if your registration date is kind of later, maybe the only thing that's left is afternoon and evening classes. And so for that semester, you have to, make afternoon and evening classes work for you, or the opposite, right? Maybe you're a night owl and you can only get like a 7 a.m. class that you really, really need to graduate or to transfer. You have to be flexible, right? You have to be willing to understand, okay, I have to do this thing. This is something I need to do to reach my goal. I need to be flexible enough to be able to do this thing that I don't really want to do, that doesn't really work for me, but I just got to do it, right? And we did exercise flexibility, not just you guys, but the school, right? With the start of the pandemic in March 2020, it really just upended everything, and everybody was told to just be flexible, including you students. And I think students have done an amazing job of being flexible and transitioning from in-person learning to online learning in its different iterations, and still sticking to it and trying. And so if you've been enrolled and taking classes during the pandemic, been in school, or been in any learning program anywhere, and you were able to make progress, or you were able to stick it out, you have already engaged in flexibility. You've learned how to be flexible. Let's keep that going, because it's an important habit of mind. And it's something, again, that transcends college, right? Out in the real world, you have to be flexible. And again, that's sometimes is put into like a job listing, right? For the desired qualifications to get a job, they might be looking for somebody who has a flexible schedule, flexible, willing to work nights and weekends, flexible, willing to be on call, things like that. Flexibility is another one of those marketable traits, and a skill or a trait that employers are looking for as well. Up next is one of my favorites, is engagement. Engagement is feeling involved and invested, right? That something's interesting to you, and so you are participating, you're learning, you're reading, you're responding, right? You're doing it, actually getting in there and doing it if it's not like an academic thing, and you're soaking up all that learning, right? Engagement is I want to. For those of us that are reading the 16-week class, we're reading Drive Chapter 5. They talk about these two ideas, compliance and engagement. Compliance is I have to do this thing. Engagement is I want to do this thing. So think about your favorite class, your favorite subject, and your least favorite, right? In your favorite subject, it's like, I want to do this. I like this class. I like this project. I like this, this material. And when you're in a class that you hate, like a subject that you hate, for me, it was always math, right? Then I would just be like, oh God, this is boring. I hate it. I wasn't engaged, right? Because I didn't like math. I didn't see a point to really pushing myself with math. Right, but it becomes important, and here's why. Yes, engagement should be part of the responsibility of the teachers, right? We should all be striving to create these really engaging classes that have engaging lectures and interesting readings and these activities where we get students involved and working together and doing projects and speeches and all those different types of things. That's all great, and that is supposed to be our job as instructors. However, engagement is also on your shoulders as well. It is a responsibility of students too, because instructors can't be 100% engaging. And I'll tell you, sometimes you will have an instructor or class that is just downright not engaging. What are you going to do to keep yourself engaged, right? Especially if it's a class you have to take. What are you going to do to make sure that you're learning that material, that you're not going to bomb those quizzes or tests or whatever forms of assessment you're being given, right? What are you going to do so that you don't fall asleep, so that you don't like tune out and drift off and start playing with your phone or doing, something else? What are you going to do to make sure that you're there present learning the material? Okay, because we all can't be entertainers. I try hard to make my classes engaging in everything, the content, my delivery, right, our participation and interactions. But you also have to meet us part of the way and figure out ways to keep yourself engaged when you don't want to be engaged, or when you're involved in a situation that isn't necessarily engaging. And again, it transcends college, right? There are things we have to do in life and learn about in life that are not interesting and that maybe we don't want to do, but it becomes important. And I'll give you an example. For myself, it's voting, right? I take the privilege of living in a democracy, or as close to a democracy as you can get, I suppose. And voting is serious. It's my duty as an American citizen to exercise my right to vote. It's a privilege. It's an amazing thing that millions of people around the world can only dream of. The fact that we have this right here in America to vote. And so it can be really difficult, though, listening to politicians and reading through all their statements of who they are and why we should vote for them, right? But not just that, those ballots, right? The actual things that we have to vote on. Have you ever sat down and tried to read the little voting booklet? It's a lot of just kind of legalese and bureaucratic language, and it can get really boring. And I'll tell you, there are times I just flat out don't want to do it. I don't want to figure out what this bill actually is, or what this bond measure actually is, or whatever it is that we're supposed to be voting on. But I do it because engaging with the government and engaging with my society and engaging with my communities through my vote is something that's important. So I don't want to do it, but I do it. And something that I started doing with my friends, and it kind of got all of us into it, was we get together. We haven't obviously been able to do it in recent times because of the pandemic and things like that, but we would get together and we would debate amongst ourselves which candidates, we were leaning towards, or which one we were leaning against. We would talk about all those ballot measures and kind of turned into well, why are you voting for this? And, it was really interesting. We had some great discussions. We were able to change our minds and bring people over to our sides on different occasions, depending on what the topic was. And it actually became something that we kind of looked forward to. It was are we going to get together and sit down and argue these things out and figure out who we're voting for, and how we're engaging in this. And it made something that was unpleasant into something that was actually kind of fun, because I was doing it with friends, and also, like I said, participating, being a citizen who's participating fully and using my right to vote to make my voice heard. So engagement is important in the classroom, important in real life outside of these classrooms. And our last one is metacognition. And this one is abstract, right? It's a little bit difficult to kind of wrap your head around with metacognition. And I have a little exercise I like to do with metacognition. When we think about learning styles, there are kind of three traditional learning styles that we talk about, right? There's the visual learners, people that learn by seeing something, right? You see a process in action. You see instructions, you see a demonstration, right? Is the process. You see a finished product, right? So some of us are visual learners, and we really need those visual things to help us learn how to do whatever it is that we're trying to learn. Then there's your audio learners, right? We have your visual, it's all about sight, and we have your audio learners. And those are folks who need to hear, right? They need to hear instructions maybe multiple times in different ways. They're also the people who can not have to look at something and be totally engaged in like drawing, doodling. I taught high school once upon a time, and I would let my students doodle. You know, I didn't require them to like constantly be staring directly at me, taking notes. Some of my students, I've learned, you know, listened as they were doodling, right? They were that kind of really good at that auditory part, right? They were audio learners. They could totally just be sitting there listening to you, and you don't think that they're listening to you, but they got everything. They heard everything you said and they stored it away. They're audio learners. That's how they do best, right? And then we have the kinesthetic learners, and kinesthetic learners are the ones who learn by doing, right? They can see something done and then they need to try it themselves, or they just start by themselves from the very beginning, right? I'm going to figure this out myself. I don't need to see anybody else do it. I don't need to read any instructions. I'm just going to do it myself. That's the kinesthetic, right? I'm going to learn by doing. I'm just going to jump in and try it out, and I'll figure it out and get better as I go. That's the kinesthetic approach. You need to actually get your hands in there and get involved and actually do it for yourself. And then there's the combo, right? Some of us are combo. We're visual kinesthetic. I'm a visual kinesthetic person. I need to see it, and then I need to try it for myself, and that's how I learn best. Audio is great, but I prefer, I prefer a visual and the chance to do it and get feedback, right? Which is another reason why I picked my grading schema the way I did, right? Is to use a grading schema that allows for you to try a thing, and then I give you feedback without like failing you completely on that thing. So I'm a visual kinesthetic, right? So think about that. What kind of learner are you? Are you an audio learner, a visual learner, a kinesthetic learner, or some kind of combination of those? Take a minute and think about it. Think about how you learn. Think about some of your best learning experiences. Think about that. How do you learn? What are you? Take a minute. You got it? Okay. That was metacognition. That what we just did, where I had you think about how you think. I had you think about your learning. I had you think, how do I learn? What does work best for me? You were thinking about the way you were thinking. And that's metacognition, right? It's thinking about how we think. It's thinking about how other people think. It's thinking about how we design these structures of society and kind of game them out. That's what metacognition is, right? So it's this abstract concept of thinking about thinking. And it's important, right? You should know what kind of learner you are. You should be challenging yourself to analyze your own thinking, right? What are your ideas? Which ideas do you believe in? Which ideas and beliefs do you espouse? And why? And why is it that you espouse and you believe in those things? And right? Also in terms of how you learn. So if you know you're a visual kinesthetic person, right? Like I'm a visual kinesthetic person, I should probably sit in an area in a classroom where I have the visual, right? Where I can see the board or the computer or whatever it is that I need to see to be able to learn, right? Now, you're the audio person, you might need to, sit wherever because it's not really going to affect you. You don't really care that much about the visual, right? But things like that, knowing yourself, knowing how you learn, where do you sit in the classroom, right? How do you take notes based on your learning style? When do you take classes? Like we're talking about in the flexibility, are you more of a night person and your brain is on and you're thinking and everything's fired up in the evening? Or are you a morning person, right? And in the morning's your best and that's when you're ready to go. And you need to design your schedules around those types of thinking, right? Like what works best for you and your style of learning. Think about how you think. And that's going to be important as you're setting yourself up for success in this class, right? This is an online asynchronous environment. So you're going to have to take that responsibility and figure out, okay, when is going to be the best time for me to work on this class and how, right? And when am I going to use those support systems built in? How am I going to use those support systems that are built in? What do I need to do to reach success? Where are my shortcomings? Where are things that I know I don't have that skill yet and I need to develop it, right? That's metacognition. And it is important to know how we think, to know how others think. That's important. All right, let's move on to our next one. And this is Brainology. This is one of my favorites. This is a reading that I feel probably if not the most strongly about in this unit, definitely like the second strongest. This really transformed the way I think about learning, particularly my own learning, right? The notion of Dr. Dweck's Brainology article is that there are two different types of mindsets, right? What we call growth mindset and fixed mindset. And that's kind of more of her layman's terms. In her book, Mindsets, and in her like formal research, she calls them something else. It's like entity and something else, but we'll use fixed and growth mindsets. And she says these two mindsets, right, radically influence your learning and your motivation. And those two mindsets are cultivated by teachers and parents, right? That was one of the things that I found the most interesting. And it kind of connects back to what Angela Lee Duckworth was talking about. We want to focus on the wrong things. We want to focus on talent, natural intelligence. Those things are great and they do exist, right? But that's not all it takes. And she does reference, Angela Lee Duckworth in her TED Talk does reference Carol Dweck and her notion of fixed and growth mindsets. And so what Dr. Dweck is saying is those who have a fixed mindset are the people who believe that their intelligence is fixed, right? You can only learn this much because that's all you got, that's all your brain can do, and oh well, it is what it is, right? It's fixed. And so what this means is that it's kind of demoralizing, right? It impacts them in these different ways. They don't want to look stupid, right? They care about being perceived as smart. They don't really care about learning. They care more about being perceived as they're learning, as they're being smart. They're the students who are also more likely to cheat so that they can keep up that facade of success and intelligence. They're less likely to try other ways of learning. If something's not working, they're just going to give up instead of trying a different learning technique or going to get tutoring, or right, they just give up. Because they don't see that there's any advantage, right? They see like, if I have to work at it, I don't have that and I'm not going to be any good. And that's the opposite, right? We know you have to work at something to get better and better. Even if you're already good, you have to keep practicing and working to get even better. That's what striving towards mastery is, right? And it's a very limiting mindset, the fixed mindset. The growth mindset, on the other hand, is the opposite of that, right? Those are the people who believe that their intelligence and their learning can grow, that it isn't a situation of it is what it is, my brain is stuck at this level and that's all I'll ever be able to do. It is the belief that with effort, sustained effort, I can grow, I can learn, I can develop, right? And so those students are the ones who are not going to give up. Those are the ones who care more about learning than just looking smart, right? They don't mind asking a question or giving an answer and getting it wrong, because they care about the actual learning experience, right? When things get tough, they don't just give up. They are the ones who are going to do tutoring, or I've just been reading my notes, that didn't work, okay, let me do flashcards, let me have people quiz me, let me try jumping on YouTube and looking at some videos, right? Those are the people who are going to look for those resources, anything that's going to help them to try to get better, right? They'll try something new and try something different. And they definitely won't cheat because they see cheating not as cheating the teacher, but as cheating themselves, right? They're cheating themselves out of their learning, and they're really invested in actually learning and actually growing. So for them, cheating is fruitless, right? So we have these two very different mindsets, and we can see how they impact progress, right? Those students that have the fixed mindset, they kind of stall out, and like we said, sometimes quit, whereas growth mindset, they don't. So what causes this? As Dr. Dweck explains in her article, it's this kind of, again, the obsession that we have with talent and with natural intelligence, and praising for that. So what Dr. Dweck is saying is there's, we have to praise for the right things. And so she's saying, if you want to cultivate that growth mindset and get people to stick with things when it's tough and to try new ways of learning if something's not working for them, and to discourage them from cheating, what we have to do is we have to stop praising for intelligence and praise on effort, because it is the effort that helps us make that progress and helps us learn, right? If you're not putting in that effort, it's not going to come to you. And so she's saying we can't praise for intelligence. You can't say, oh, you're so smart, you're so smart, you're so smart. Because what that does is it develops a fixed mindset, because in the first time that person who's been told they're smart their whole life fails at something, it destroys their whole perception of themselves. And so what she is saying is, let's instead praise for effort, right? You've worked really hard on this. I can see how much you've tried. I can see how much more effort you put in this draft of the paper than you did in the last one. And it shows, and you're getting better, right? To praise for effort as opposed to praise for intelligence and talent, right? And I will say too, like the grit notion, where there's an opposite argument here, there has been some pushback on Dr. Dweck's ideas of fixed and growth mindset, and some people have said, well, if you focus on, if you have the right attitude, learning will come to you. And I agree with that. That's not how Dr. Dweck's philosophy and methodology is supposed to work, right? It's not just all about the attitude. If I believe it, I can do it. If I believe it, I can achieve it. That's great. And yes, you want to have that attitude. And yes, you want to try to stay positive about reaching your successes, even in the face of barriers and obstacles, and try to move past those. Right. But what are you doing? That's the bigger thing. And Dr. Dweck has responded by saying, it can't just be the attitude. You can't just foster a positive attitude. You have to foster the effort. You have to foster the labor. You have to have your students and people understand that progress comes from putting in the effort, right? You can sit there with a good attitude all day long, but if you're not putting in the work, you're not going to make any progress. And I'll go a step further, and I will tell you the type of effort you put in matters, right? You've heard that saying, practice makes perfect. My dad taught me another one, and it's nope, practice does not make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. If you show up to practice, let's just go with a sport. You show up to practice every day and you guys are just messing around, being sloppy, having fun, not really trying, not putting in your all, right? That's how you practice. That's how you're going to play on game day, right? Your passes, your plays are going to be sloppy because you didn't put in that full effort during practice. So it matters, right? Not just the effort, not just getting it done to get it done, but if you're really trying to get better at something, you put in meaningful effort, right? You put in your 100%, your 110%, right? You don't look at practice as like, oh, it's this thing I got to do. You look at practice as, this is an opportunity for me to get better. This is an opportunity for me to learn more. This is an opportunity for me to engage in this, right? So yes, it is about attitude, but it's also about effort and the type of effort that you're putting in. And I'll tell you, in this class and in college, I understand that sometimes effort can fluctuate, right? Sometimes the best that you can do might be like a 70 or an 80%. And I totally understand that. My point is, just give as much effort as you can. And if your best effort is sometimes an 80%, you should be happy with that, knowing that, well, that was the best that you could do at that time, right? But the key here is, like I said, to consistently try to give your best effort, whatever that is, towards learning, because that's what's going to help you make progress, right? Is yes, having that attitude, I can do this, but putting in the effort, seeking out different resources, seeking out different programs, seeking out different ways to study. Like I said, going and checking out YouTube, getting tutoring, all of those different things. Those are actions. That's effort that you are putting into trying to get better. And that will have a positive impact and help your learning and your development. And just like anything else, it doesn't come overnight, right? You can't expect to learn everything about writing in 16 weeks. Right? It's just not possible. That's why you take multiple classes, right? And you'll practice your reading, writing, and critical thinking the entire time you're in college. So keep those things in mind, okay? Effort and mindset matter. Up next, we have, that's the Brainology Summary. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take us back out to modules so we can jump right just directly into not grades. Okay. Next one we're going to look at is Drive Chapter 5. Again, if you're in my 8-week class, this doesn't apply to you. If you want to read Drive Chapter 5 and watch this part of the lecture video, you totally can. I do have Drive available in the textbook module. Okay, come on, open. Okay, so chapter 5 of Drive is all about this notion of mastery, right? And Dan Pink in chapter 5 defines mastery as this desire to get better and better at something that is meaningful, right? And he brings up the ideas that I was talking about earlier, compliance versus engagement. And that engagement is what leads towards mastery, right? Is feeling engaged, feeling involved, feeling invested. That leads people to getting better and better at something that matters to them. Compliance does not. Doing something because you have to do it doesn't lead towards getting better and better at something that matters to you. So he said that's something that we first have to start with is looking at compliance versus engagement and trying to make sure that we're engaged, right? And then he says, all right, striving for mastery, there's a couple things we have to look at in terms of what mastery is, right? And he says mastery is 3 things. Mastery is a pain, mastery is a mindset, and mastery is an asymptote, right? And what he's saying, mastery is a pain. Well, think about that, right? Anything that takes you to get better and better, especially if you're trying to reach mastery level, is going to be painful, right? You have to put in all those hours of practice, of focus, of failure, of resilience, of rebounding and bouncing back when you fail, right? And like we said, sometimes going to practice, doing those things that you need to do to get better on the days you don't want to do them, right? Putting in that kind of effort, that's pain, right? Missing out on experiences or things you want to do because you need to sacrifice and stay home and study or get a project done or do whatever it is, right? Mastery is not always fun and happy and lovely. It can be painful, right? It can be a struggle. But what he says is we have to remember it's also a mindset. And if you have the right mindset, and here he's referring to Dr. Dweck with her entity and incremental theory, entity and incremental, or fixed and growth mindset, right? That in order to transcend that pain and strive for mastery, you have to have the right mindset. You have to be willing to push through the pain. You have to be gritty, and you have to have that growth mindset and understand that, yeah, it's going to take you a long time and there's going to be setbacks and you're not going to make progress the way you want all the time. And it might not be as fast as you want it to be. But if you're putting in that consistent effort, that strong effort, that dedicated effort, that 100 perfect practice, you'll get better, right? And if you think about it too, they talk about like experts, and that in order to really be considered an expert in something, you need 10,000 hours. And so think about that, 10,000 hours. Wow, that is a lot of time, right? That's like hours a day for years straight to reach that level of knowing how to do something, right? And with that many hours being put into something, yes, you are going to feel pain and you're going to have the right mindset, right? Because that's going to be difficult. Like I said, you're going to miss out on certain things because you're dedicated to this other thing. And I've been there too. Right. There were a lot of things I had to pass up and not be able to do when I was trying to focus on my master's degree, because a grad program is really intense and rigorous. So there were like trips and, events and parties and things like that, happy occasions. I couldn't attend because I had so much work to do, or, had to focus. But I did it. Right. And I'll say, yeah, it was painful. It sucked having to miss out on certain things and having to sometimes, right, force myself through hundreds of pages of reading in a week. But it was something that was meaningful to me. I wanted to get better and better. I wanted to have a master's degree in English, right? So I kept pushing. I had the right mindset and I just pushed through all of those painful moments. And there were plenty, trust me. I ended up in the hospital twice in grad school from just getting so sick from pushing myself. So yeah, mastery is a pain. Mastery is a mindset. And Dan Pink tells us that mastery is also an asymptote, right? Which he says is a mathematical term, meaning that you can never actually truly reach mastery, right? And the asymptote, the line that approaches the other line, but it never quite meets that line, that's what mastery is, right? You'll never be able to actually fully master 100% any one thing. So he says, why do we do it though? Why do we strive for mastery when we know true mastery is unattainable, right? And even if you do become the best in your field, there's somebody right behind you wanting to break your record. Look at basketball, right? Look at those records that get broken all the time. There are people right behind you waiting to be the next master at something, and people after them, right? And so this notion that we can learn everything there is to learn, or get as skilled as we possibly can, that there's an ultimate level of skill or ultimate level of learning is unrealistic. So why do we do it though, right? Is what Dan Pink is saying. Why do we strive for mastery when we know it's impossible? And that goes back to that, because it's meaningful for you, right? And that's what he's talking about overall in his book Drive, is that we're not just motivated by things like money. Yes, those things matter. We're also motivated by things like what matters to us. We want to get better and better at something. We want to help other people. We want to share things like that, right? So it's not all just about money and extrinsic rewards. He's talking about intrinsic rewards, are what really drive people to success, to achieve, to make things, to invent things, to start new companies, right? It's that desire to get better at something that's meaningful to you, not because it's going to bring you money and fame, but because it's something that matters to you. And that connects right again with kind of the grit and the growth mindset, right? Up next, our last reading for this unit is Laziness Does Not Exist by Professor Devin Price. And as I said in my original lecture that shows you how to do the assignment, Dr. Price, it goes by they, them. Okay, so please just keep that in mind. We want to respect how people are identifying their gender. So Dr. Price uses they, them. So what Dr. Price is trying to get at here is this notion that laziness does not exist, right? We want to say, and especially teachers, especially in education, we want to say, right, if a student's not doing something, it's because they're lazy. If they're failing our tests or quizzes, it's because they're lazy. If they come to class late all the time, it's because they're lazy. They're not putting in enough effort to get here on time. If they're not submitting their work, and it's because they're lazy. And that's not true. That's just not true at all. What Dr. Price is telling us is, what we perceive as laziness in other people are actually unseen barriers, right? So they're explaining like something like depression, right? Yeah, how are you going to write a 10-page paper if you're going through, right, clinical depression? so that it's not you're being lazy, it's that you are going through a period of depression, or your anxiety is raging so bad, and every time you just try to sit down and start an assignment, you panic yourself and you can't do it, right? And so you don't turn in the assignment. We need to stop ourselves from thinking that our students are lazy and start to think, okay, what are the barriers here that are preventing us from doing what we have to do, right? And that's something that, yes, teachers have to do, right? But on your end too, it's important that you understand what are those barriers to your success, right? What are those barriers to your success? What are those boulders? And the next step, what are bridges? What are bridges that are going to get us over those boulders? What are things that we can do, that we can use, techniques to help us when we hit those obstacles, right? And that's going to be important. But like I said, the point that they're trying to make in this article is that there's other things there when we just want to jump to this idea of laziness. There's other things that could be there, right? And so I want you all to know also that that's a place where I'm coming from as your teacher. You know, you might have had an experience in the past where, like I said, all the teachers just assumed you were being lazy, but you weren't being lazy. You were struggling to read because you couldn't see the board because you can't have glasses because your parents couldn't afford the glasses, or you could never read out loud and would just refuse to do it, and they consider you being lazy, but it's because you suffer from dyslexia and you know, we're having a struggling to read out loud. There's all these things that we can't see, and we just want to assume that people are lazy and that's why they're doing what they're doing. And so if you've had that experience before in another class, I'm here to say that that's not my attitude. I agree with Dr. Price and what they're saying in this article, and I believe that there are those invisible barriers that I can't see that may be preventing you from doing what you need to do when you need to do it and how I want it done. And that is another reason why I use the contract grading system that I use, so that it gives you the opportunity, right, to go beyond those barriers, to cross that bridge and get yourself over that boulder that's impeding your path to success. I'm not just going to sit here and assume that you're lazy, because I know that's not true. There are other things going on, like a global pandemic, that might be preventing you from getting what you need to get done. That being said, right, we still have an obligation. I still have an obligation to grade you. You still have an obligation to learn the course material and demonstrate that through my assignments and assessments, right? So what we have to do there is like I said, we have to find those barriers, and we have to find what's going to help you overcome that barrier. And that's why I say, use those resources, use all those programs and resources. And if you don't know all about the different programs and resources, book an appointment with your counselor, right? Head over to student services, Google, right? Look at it, look and see what we offer. Head over to the student services tab that I have over here on Canvas, right? We have tons of different program services and tutoring services that can help you overcome those barriers. All right. So welcome to English 101E. I know you're not lazy. There's just a barrier there. Let's get that barrier out of your way. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed these readings. Like I said, I picked them because I enjoyed them. I found them inspirational. I learned these were things that like I didn't know before, especially the fixed and growth mindset. That one really changed my attitude, particularly about math. I have always had a fixed mindset about math, and now I have like this completely different attitude. And when I look back, I realize I could have done more, and I could have done things differently. And maybe there were a couple of classes I wouldn't have had to take if I would have, not had that fixed mindset about math. But now that I know that fixed and growth mindsets are actual things, right? I can avoid that. I can challenge myself when I feel myself going towards that fixed mindset in something, and understand like, nope, it's the effort, and I have to put in good effort, strong effort, 100% perfect effort in order to get better at that thing, right? And so these I just find interesting and relevant, particularly to, what we're doing in college, but also, what I'm doing in this class too. The overarching theme of this class is storytelling. And I believe this unit here is helping us tell the story of who we are as learners, right? And other people might have tried to write your story as you're lazy, and that's not the whole story, right? There's stories behind why we are the learners that we are. So I hope you have enjoyed these readings. I hope they've inspired you to be curious and maybe look into even more ideas to, like I said, maybe look up what does the opposite say? What do people on the opposite spectrum of these ideas believe? How do they challenge the notions that we've just read about? So if you have any questions or concerns or want to talk about something further, please feel free to shoot me a text or an email, and I'll talk to you all soon.